Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're gonna do something super duper exciting and crazy and off the hook, so you better be prepared. We're just doing a trailer reaction. I'm sorry. I wasn't lying to you, technically. I mean, maybe it's crazy and off the hook to me. In the meantime, I'm using our crappy internet to pull up the Scorch Trials trailer. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'll go ahead and confess something to you. I already watched the trailer. I don't normally do that, but I am so excited. This is probably, not of all the young adult fiction, but of all the young adult fiction that I was really worried might not get a second movie, this. Which would have been a shame because I consider the Maze Runner series just the pinnacle of young adult science fiction. Keep in mind, I say young adult science fiction, which I honestly believe, and I don't mean this to be a bad thing, it's just completely in a league of its own. It's a whole other ballgame. I always felt that where sci-fi is concerned with young adult fiction, it's almost like a beginner's starters pack if you know you want to go into more high-end sci-fi or fantasy. So, I'm just saying I don't stumble upon a lot of young adult fiction that deals with a lot of the heavy stuff that a lot of sci-fi deals with the exception of maybe like Ender's Game, but there's some debate on whether or not that is strictly young adult and blah blah blah. Anyway, we're gonna watch this trailer. Yep, that's what we're gonna do today.
I think it's safe to say the Maze trials were a complete success.
Success, huh?
It's too soon to say, but they could be the key to everything. It's time now to begin phase 2.
Dylan O'Brien is a delight to behold.
On a very thin thread. Beyond this door,
I'm a big fan of the face, personally.
It's us. We weren't the only maze. What do you remember about Wicked? I remember they sent me to the maze. I remember watching my friends die in front of me. Don't you want to understand?
It's just like Teen Wolf.
Why this all happened? I just
Dying
need to
in front of
know.
him.
Whose side are you on? They're hiding something. What? You don't know that?
Oh, I love him. I don't know his name,
Just before this.
but I used to have the biggest crush on him. The guy who's from, I want to say Love Actually, and like Nanny McPhee.
Kids won't last one day out of the Scorch.
He's like 30. Run, Thomas, run!
What the hell?
That's a bridge,
The course
Thomas.
of your lives will determine the course of
Cease to be a
humanity.
genius.
Into light or darkness.
Girls hit you hallelujah, ooh, girls hit you hallelujah, ooh, girls hit you hallelujah. Scorch Trials is gonna be really awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, there's so much I want to say, and before I say any of it, I feel like I should be fair to you, to everybody. It's been a really long time, okay? Like, I have read the Maze Runner series, I reread it, and then, I don't know why, I just haven't picked it up again. I totally plan on going back and rereading it because I've been talking with a lot of people about it lately because of, you know, the movies and you know, the new trailer and whatnot. So forgive me if any information I'm saying is incorrect. It's just been a long time. And the Maze Runner, one of the wonderful things about the series is it's incredibly, I want to say intricate. There's a lot of little details involved and such tiny books, very Hunger Games-esque in that way. The Scorch Trials is gonna be crazy, I hope. The trailer doesn't really give enough away. Like, at this point, it could go one way or another, okay? It could be wonderful and really intense, but also, just like the books, interesting, which was the big thing with the Maze Runner. Because it felt like everything was gonna go one way, and then all of a sudden it went another way, because you're so used to these young adult fiction tropes and these, you know, constantly recycled ideas, and I'm not saying that it's entirely exempt. Obviously, I think that's just kind of a given with most young adult, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but anyway, that's what you come to expect, but The Maze Runner kind of continually shocks you. Books 1, 2, and 3, actually I'm going to compare it to Hunger Games one more time, are all vastly different from one another, and that's what kind of like Hunger Games to me. Like Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay are all three very different stories, despite the same characters and even some of the same settings, etc., etc. Except the difference here is that I feel like in every book, you are taken completely out of this episodic plot that is involved in the first book, the second book, the third book, and you're taken into a brand new one. And even though it's, you know, continuous in the end, it's kind of hard to put into words. Like, I'll just put it as simply as possible. Every book is very different, even though it's following the same continual plot, which I really liked because it worked really well. It wasn't just like, whoa, James Dashner, what are you doing? Anyway, there was a thought I had, and then I got on the train of thought, and I went somewhere. I went askew, so I'm sorry. I've been talking about this a lot the past couple days, so like I have all these ideas and thoughts and emotions in my head. So, I remember what I was saying. So it can go one way. It can be really good and intense and interesting, or it could be a kind of a bastardized version of the story. I'm thinking Divergent versus Hunger Games. Like, it is definitely a matter of opinion, but that's like like Divergent was just kind of the bare bones of the story, and I didn't really love it for that reason. Whereas I felt like the Hunger Games had more heart. And right now, the trailer is kind of showing that it can go one way or another. I mean, like, you know, Dylan O'Brien and that other British guys, their pretty face isn't going to save everything. And unfortunately, this is a very easy story to mess up. There's a lot of things, like I can imagine all the directors, producers, whatever, sitting around and being like, all right, what do we omit? What do we keep? And they have to be careful because there are parts, I don't want to spoil anything, but there are parts, especially in the Scorch trials, that can feel tedious to read, but are later on incredibly important. Like long parts that you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, is this like, wow, okay. But then when you're finished, it's like, oh my gosh, like that, I get it, that needed to be there because this. And sometimes, it does happen in book to movie adaptations. What worries me is I could see a director or a producer or writer omitting these parts and thinking it's okay because they're boring at the time, it's fine, or they don't seem important at the time, and then they get to the end and it's like, it's fine, we don't really need it, we can just kind of do a vague explanation, throw that in there. And it may seem plausible at the time, but the problem is the death cure kind of brings everything together, and if you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, what you're going to get is a very vague idea of what James Dashner originally intended, which was amazing, seriously. Something I think it's also very important they need to do, I don't know if you agree with me, but one of the most captivating parts of the Maze Runner series as a whole, there's no really good and bad guys. Like, there's no teams, if that makes sense. It's not the Gladers versus Wicked as much as you think it is, and as the series progresses, you realize it's less of a good team and a bad team, and more of good people and bad people, driven by this just horrible world. Like, what would you do to survive? What does it say about you, you know? And James Dashner really uses this, you know, to propel the story in just really cool directions. What is it that we would do for survival? What does it say about us? That's a big thing he brings up. So as it goes on, you learn a lot more about Wicked. And one of the best parts of it is that Wicked is not necessarily composed of a bunch of evil people twirling their mustaches. And originally the intent was pure and very, very good, and they, you know what I mean, like they wanted to save the earth. They were like, okay, we're gonna get together the brightest minds and figure it out. But somewhere along the way, a couple of bad people who were very desperate to survive in their way and not just come out alive, but come out on top, which is the big difference. I'm thinking, I don't know why I was about to make quotes. They're just bunnies. hop away. The big thing is the basis of survival. So James Dashner doesn't really do the whole black and white good versus evil. That's not his thing. It's more like, look how just a few bad people can ruin a very pure and good thing. Whether it's the Gladers or Wicked or the entirety of the earth. Let me just say, if you haven't read these books, I wasn't messing around before. I rate the Maze Runner trilogy very high up. I rate it up there with the Across the Universe series by Beth Revis. I rate it up there with the Hunger Games. Like I said, young adult fiction has its own thing. It's its own section. It's I mean, not young adult fiction, young adult science fiction. And I think it's because, like I said, I think it's more of a beginner step rather than a dumbed down thing. So don't take it the wrong way. I'm not saying it's stupid, but it's certainly usually not very intricate. But The Maze Runner is very well done. These are my concerns. And I guess I'm most concerned because I really enjoyed The Maze Runner, personally. But the Maze Runner book itself is way harder to mess up than the Scorch Trials and Death Cure. Because it's simple. You got the Gladers in the glade, running, not running, running, not running. And it's very simple, like, kind of hard to mess up. But this is when it starts to get a little more complicated because this is what I was talking about. The Maze Runner feels like it starts in one place and you feel like you know where it's gonna go. But starting at the very end of the first Maze Runner book, you're completely thrown for a loop. You're just like, wait, what? I don't know what it is. I don't know if you guys, like, who read, like, maybe you can share your reading experience, but for me, I was stunned by the change of pace. Like, that book went in directions I had no idea it was going to go. I didn't know most of the series was going to take place in the outside world. I didn't know how intricate Wicked was going to get. I thought it was going to be a very simplified, watered down, good versus evil, just escaping out into the real world type deal. But I thought that was going to be like the conclusion. I wasn't really banking on it happening at the end of the first book. So it's a lot about build-up. And for those of you who want to know more about this and have read the series, a good book, I didn't review it. I don't know why. Sometimes I just forget. It goes right over my head. It's kind of slow, but really cool in its explanations is The Kill Order, which is the prequel to The Maze Runner. And it gets into how the maze was created and stuff, and anyway, the reason why I feel like it's important to babble on about this is because as the movies get more popular, I'm seeing more and more people say stuff like, how does this even make sense? Why would you put kids in a maze with monsters in order to find a cure to that? Like, this is really too intricate, it's too over the top. Like, and you know what? I'll be really honest with you, when I was reading the first Maze Runner, it's exactly what I thought. I was like, why? This doesn't make any sense. Like, kind of the Divergent thing. Like, why would you divide people based on personality? You didn't think nothing would go wrong? You thought this was okay? Like, that's what it felt like. However, you need to read the rest of the books, because all of a sudden you realize James Dashner did have a plan, and it actually, like, yeah, it's a little bit nonsensical, as sci-fi kind of can tend to be, but not completely ridiculous. A lot of it made scary sense, and especially if you read The Kill Order, that's what I'm saying. If you read The Kill Order, suddenly a lot of things fall into place. So I'm excited. I hope they do Group A, Group B, that whole thing, girl group. I don't know if they're going to specify that stuff. I wouldn't mind them changing the very, very end of Death Cure, because if you haven't read it, close your ears. Close them right now. Close them right now. Right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want Teresa to live. I want her to live so badly, and I don't want Brenda. I don't like Brenda, and I think she don't like her. That hurt. Anyway, so tell me what you're thinking. Especially, I mean, I'm not like casting those who haven't read the books aside, but I'm curious about those who have read the books. Like, what do you think about the dynamic of Wicked and the Gladers? Did you think it was interesting that there was really no black and white, like nobody was good or evil, it was all about just living? And I thought that was really cool, especially amongst kind of a dystopian future, because it's usually the government versus the meek, lowly underdog, but James Ashton doesn't really play that game. And I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think about the trailer. What did you think about the first Maze Runner? Okay, thank you. Email, thank you. I'm a big fan, and I would actually really like to discuss this. It's been a long time, and I feel like the Maze Runner fandom, so to speak, is kind of crawling back out of the ashes like a phoenix ready to fly. And I ain't mad. I ain't even mad. Pretty dang excited, actually. So we need to talk about this. No, you go first. No, you. It's okay. Just excited for them to just scorch all those trials. Oh, by the way, the Maze Runner official film Twitter, I think, or maybe just the Scorch trials, sent me this super cool shirt. Look at this. Oh my gosh, I almost just died. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna lean back all the way. Or I'll stand. There you go. So you can kind of see, it's like, got this stuff. They like just sent me a message, or like send me your address. And I was like, that's creepy, but cool shirt. And then when you go out in the sun, it reads letters. I don't know what it says. Jordan read it to me, and it said something like, you can't outrun the Scorch, or run, Thomas run, or Tom Risa, together if I've ever, if I remember correctly. So it's a pretty cool shirt, right? I was pretty happy about that. So Scorch Trials Twitter, or whoever you are, if you're seeing this, thank you for the t-shirt.